in public
one
statements,
cannot help but be struck
distinctiveness and
not only by the explicit,
now
direct, and
construed
pragmatic
as
tenor
politically
of the National Gallery statement, but also by how
But does not much of the
principled
glow
it is.
surrounding the
That
founding
particularly
fathers
caught my
arise out of the
attention.
adroit, forceful,
The
and eloquent
commitment
documents
to
they left behind,
fostering
out of the
understanding.
display of mind. and
This
the
sounds
rhythm of
refreshingly
ideas
different
that is now
tonight
suspect.
from the more common and distinctly
Lincoln's
subordinate
cadences
place that
are indelible.
outreach programs
Washington,
have
however,
in
left
the affairs
nothing
of
of
most
this sort.
presenting institutions.
Self-educated,
Fostering
his
is
imposing
not
physical
instructive.
stature allowed him to use principle and action.
Understanding is
to the
not a
necessary effect.
concatenation of
There are a
facts.
scant 24 formal documents
A
from
visitor
his two
experience
presidential terms,
in one
only
after
3
another
which
of the
have any
National
distinction.
Gallery's exhibitions.
And the significance
How
attributed to
deeply
these
ingrained in
is
its
not on
mission
account of their rhetoric,
It
but
is
rather
to make
the
available
occasions
to the
they
widest
mark.
range of visitors
The last
the deeper
and the most noted,
meanings
the
that art can give
1796
to our
farewell
existence.
address, is flat and officious.
To walk into
The
this
period
building
for a new election of a citizen to
is to
administer the
alter
executive government of the United
yourself.
States being not far distant, and the time actually arrived when your thoughts must be employed in designating the person who is to be clothed with that important trust, it appears to me proper, especially as it may conduce to a more distinct expression of the public voice, that I should now apprise you of the resolution I have formed to decline being considered among the number of those out of whom a choice is to be made.
what was needed. While working at IRCOM, I received an invitation to travel to Japan for a conference that would bring together pairs of American and Japanese artists. There were to be 2 architects, 2 sculptors, 2 sociologists, 2 theater directors, like the Ark. Takamitsu had asked that I compliment him. Meetings were held at the Hakone Hot Springs Resort near Tokyo. The timing was not ideal, as work in Paris was at a particularly intense phase, 7 days a week of late-night sessions, and I did not relish the long flight over Russia. Takamitsu indicated that he would be at his Karuizawa mountain retreat and proposed that I join him there for a few days of convalescence before the conference began. The invitation was tempting, but the flight over Russia would now be extended by a bus ride into central Tokyo and a train to the mountains. By the time I arrived there, I was a mess. He had anticipated this. We arrived on foot at his compact but elegant compound, and he said, "You take a bath now." Not at all an uninviting prospect, thought my sluggish mind without yet having understood the implications. He showed me the bathing room. It was surprisingly large, and at the far end in the right-hand corner was the tub, deep, narrow, white, poised between invitation and threat. The water rose to tub top, a mirror-like surface from which steam rose. I undressed, squatted on a small wooden stool, and washed myself with the bucket of water provided. Ready now, I approached the tub and tested the temperature. It was shocking, unmanageable, unimaginable. I looked for a tap from which to add cold water. There was none. I searched for a temperature control. Nothing on the wall, nothing on the tub itself. I was now at least fully alert. The situation was absurd. I could either imagine proceeding, nor the shame of emerging without having taken the opportunity offered. Finally, resolved that the need to cling to a shred of personal dignity prevailed. I climbed in quickly,
Social
reasoning that there was no
stylistic
possibility
adventurousness,
that he harbored ill intent towards me.
growing influence of technology, intermedia
I
experimentation.
was in
I met
horror
Takamitsu.
intact,
His
discomfort
passion for film
extreme.
was infectious.
The hope was that my own body temperature would lower that of the water.
Of a common language.
The room was quiet,
We often went to the
indifferent.
cinema.
I
Observed
heard with
together.
disbelief an electric
At one of
heater
the
go on and
ubiquitous
realized that the tub was not going to adapt to my body's plausible temperature, but would reassert its hellish dominion.
Lips and cupped hands, he would conjure up Louis Armstrong. He
But
knew
there
Dixieland
was,
as well as the
as there
history of
is,
cinema.
Gradual
Subtle,
adaptation,
brilliant.
and the
He
intended
had had
effect
no formal
did
education
occur.
as the result
Bones
of the
turned
disruptions
soft.
of war.
Muscles, tendons lost their
Much
structure.
of his income derived not
Finally,
from
I
music, but
extracted
from
myself,
fame
not
and
certain that I
international
could stand.
festivals.
Dressed
From
and
the
came
rank
into the
of
kitchen.
film scores.
Toro
It
was
was always
sitting
a welcome
at a wooden
experience
table
to share a work for
whose
which
top
he had
glowed in
composed.
the afternoon sunlight.
Over the years, these included
On it was a bowl of
the
edamame,
dunes,
cold
Shinoda's
and
double
bristling with
suicide
soft
at
crystals.
Kurosawa's
He opened the
Undisputed
refrigerator and brought out 2 cans of Sapporo
When we
beer.
first met, though, he spoke with particular feeling about Kobayashi's
No more
1961 Kwaidan,
than 2 inches high.
itself based on
They
the
were
similar
icy
ghost
cold.
stories that were so popular in Japan. For this project, he had collaborated with Okuyama Juno,
Exactly.
a renegade electronics
I could not
engineer.
imagine anything
Okuyama was
more
interested in music,
exact.
tolerant of composers,
What was needed.
able to design analog electronic devices custom-made to achieve whatever effects might be desired.
When the
Their
Xanacases
18th
entertained,
was, as
it
one
was a
expected,
reciprocal experience,
unexpected.
brimming with banter, good
Entering,
food,
one
drink,
found
and
that the
relaxed
entire right
conviviality.
wall
It always
was a
involved
thicket of
Françoise
plants,
and took place
tall
at their nearby
ferns,
apartment on
bamboo,
Rue Chaptal,
lent a fresh and
That was
damp
another
character
matter.
to the air.
a high-ceilinged room, stunningly
One
white.
nevertheless felt
On our last visit there, I
was
remarked on
cooking.
its vaulted
Mirth
lift.
bustling about, setting a large
He said,
table opposite the
I
forest,
fly sometimes.
arranging the necessary.
Xenakis, though curious and voluble, was not a storyteller. Imperious, strongly directed, often ironic, but alive to and warm with concern for those in whom he found interest. There was often a judgment of some sort at the end of an episodic exploration of whatever subjects drifted through our interactions, sometimes cutting, sometimes benevolent, at others unexpected and memorable in its ellipticality. The last time we met in his studio, his illness had begun to possess him. We had been seeking together sketches, documentation of any kind that related to the desert house that he had designed for Karen and me in the early 90s. Feeling the implications and threads of similar moments, they stretched back decades. And not knowing exactly how to close this interpersonal window, we stood at the studio door. I turned to leave, and he said, not, take care, glad we could get together, nothing of that sort. No, he said, be intelligent. The door closed. Loyalty. Karen and I were out of the country for 7 years, Germany, France, Italy. Challenging, rewarding. Then we moved to Japan and everything was different. We met Takemitsu, who was even then becoming a legend. He had little English, I had little Japanese. We spent a lot of time together and found ways to communicate. Isolated words, diagrams, miming. There was a directness, warmth, acceptance. When we returned to live in California, the frequency of contact with Japanese friends diminished. After several years, I wrote to Toru about something, a question, an invitation, I can't remember. My message concluded by expressing regret about the value of what had been lost. He answered immediately, don't be silly, nothing's changed.